everybody again. Pastor Joe here. I'm going to be talking about the soundboard today. I'm going to do two videos. I'm going to do one talking about the soundboard and another one talking about some of the other techie stuff we've got here. This one just pertains really to the soundboard, on, off, different features that it has, some we use, some we don't use, and some other important information which you may need to know. All right, obviously it's important to know how to turn it on, and in case you always forget to read, which I don't know, sometimes I forget to read, it's a simple on, that switch, and then you've got your amps, 1 amp and 2 amps, and then there's also the speaker at the cross, which is floodlight number 11. And you know that's on because you see that little light right there underneath the cross. The other amp is actually controlled by this little guy right here on the chain, and it actually controls these speakers up here. So the red light means they're on, no light means they're off. We're going to leave them off because we don't need them on. But that's controlled with this guy right here. And sometimes you can turn it on from the back, sometimes you can't. It's really kind of an interesting little gizmo. All right, so the soundboard. Obviously it's new within the last 8 months. We replaced the old one with it. Everything sounds instantly better with the new board. But there are a lot more knobs, as you all know. It's not a complex board. It's not a basic board. It is just what we need. It has several features that we use, some that we don't. Sorry about the jiggling camera. All right, first off, you have your main row down here. Obviously, each individual channel is controlled by the mains. So each channel is labeled and is controlled by this main right here. These 4 have to do with effects and groupings, and we don't use those. We don't have enough stuff, or we don't ever have enough people to justify using them, so we don't use them. With that, I'm going to get it down real close here. All right, you see how this says 1 and 2, 3 and 4? Those deal with that grouping, those 4 that I just showed you down there. These need to be up. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, they have to be popped up. If you push them down and this left right is down, which is the main that we always use, so this one here, if this will be easier, if this is down and one of these are down, you have a chance to fry something on the board. So just occasionally it's good to just run your fingers over them and make sure that they're not pushed down. If they are, push them back up. They're just a little, I'll just do it with this one. It's just a little push down and it's up, little clicky switch. So that is why this is labeled do not use. I don't want anybody to be using this. I don't think we want to spend another $1,100 on a soundboard. I just don't think we want to do that right now. Each channel is labeled from the pulpit. Pastor's lapel mic, the over-the-ear mic that he uses. The yellow handheld, the choirs. This is the left choir mic. This one's the right choir mic as you look at it. So left, right, left, right. It's always left, right. It's the same thing with these. Left is on the left side of the platform and the right is on the right side of the platform. If you plug something into left channel number 7, this is going to be the one that controls it, and so on and so forth for each on down the line. If it's labeled open, there is currently nothing going into those channels, so there's absolutely no reason to use them. They are open if we choose to use more wireless microphones or if we want to run more cables to the front. It is entirely up to us. The red and the green handhelds are down here, and I'll explain that why they're down here in a minute. And then 3 more open. This one isn't labeled, but it is open. And the computer. We have a line running from the computer to the soundboard. That's how we do all our videos, and some of the some of the audio tracks that we do is controlled by that. Each one of these works in conjunction with the main. Obviously, the most ideal place, you know where you're at, specifically with the main, is going to be in the little box right there. To you, it means it's basically unchanged. It is as basic quality sound as you can get. It's sending an unchanged signal to the amplifiers, and I don't exactly understand it all, but that's what it's doing. So most of your control, most of your changing of volume will be done with individual channels. You can mute the channels. It's as simple as pushing the brown button, the gray button that says mute, and the little light indicates that it's either on or off. You can solo listen to them, as indicated by this top button here. Solo, basically you use the headphones, and you can listen to that individual channel if you think somebody's singing a little high but you need to isolate it, or if there's a weird noise when there's a group. It works real good to isolate what's happening, and then you can control it volume-wise, everything else. So each one of these corresponds with what's down here. All right, moving up the soundboard, past the mute mark, you've got your pan left and right. Odd means auditorium. The foyer is obviously the foyer. So if you need to pan it one way or another, there's an event going on in the foyer and you need a little bit more of the signal to go there, pan it to the right. That's about all I can say. There is a rheostat in the foyer, behind the door, directly behind the door, behind you, that also controls it. But if you need to send a little bit more signal, just turn it that way. That'll send the signal. It'll also make it very quiet in the auditorium. That is also controlled by the one main switch. The left and the right, the auditorium and the foyer, both run through this one main switch. That is indicated auditorium and foyer. Each channel has that capability. Most of the time, just leaving it straight up and down, complete left and right, unchanged, works pretty good. Moving on above that, you've got equalizers. You've got your low frequencies, so your deep basses, and then you got your mids, and then you've got your highs. Depending on who you've got doing what, most of the time, you don't have to mess with them, but occasionally you gotta, because of ambient temperature in the air, different things like that, the amount of people in the room, sometimes you do gotta mess with it. It's a little loud, tenny, so we turn that down. We'll turn the mid down just a little bit. We'll turn the bass up just a smidge. Stuff like that. It happens occasionally. A lot of that is determined by room temperature and by the amount of people in the room, and even where the speaker is standing. I noticed that I have issues with it when I was doing some Wednesday Bible study stuff, and Pastor was down in front here. I use those more or less to try and help it, because I don't know if it was just where he was at in relation to the rest of the room or relation to the speakers, but there was some reverberation, and I had to adjust that a little bit, and then I had to remember to put it back for Sunday. So those are there. You don't always have to use them, like ever actually, but when you do, they're there. Obviously turning it to the left cuts it out, turning it up to the right gives it more. So if you need more tenor, if you need more mid, if you need more bass, turn it clockwise. Otherwise, turn it the other way if you need to cut it out a little bit. Straight up and down is unchanged. It's as natural a voice as you'll probably get. Above that, you've got these two red lines. Those have to deal with effects. We don't use effects. Our room really doesn't need any effects. If we use them, it sounds pretty bad. So we don't use them, so they stay all the way down. This bottom yellow, we do not use it either. It is not hooked up to anything. It doesn't go anything. It's an auxiliary output, and I'll explain auxiliary outputs here in a second, but we don't use them at all, so just disregard this bottom row of yellow. All right. Now, auxiliary outputs. What is an auxiliary output? An auxiliary output is a different speaker system than the mains. So you've got your main controls here and here. Your individual channel and then your main control. Those come out of that speaker there and the ones in the auditorium. That's all they come out. They don't come out anywhere else. What controls other speakers? I mentioned the speaker at the cross, the stage monitors, and we have the piano and the organ monitors. Those are each controlled by one of these auxiliary outputs. Each row controls for that channel, just as if the individual channel down here, it's the same all the way up. The individual volume control for that channel is right here. So you've got your piano and your organ. That's what that means, P and O. I couldn't fit piano and organ there. Your subwoofer, your speaker at the cross. Call it a subwoofer because really that's what it is. Then you've got your stage monitors. They're all controlled individually right here, all the way down. So each one can be set different, which can be really nice sometimes when you've got a large group of people and they're playing on various instruments and you've got some people that are overpowering others, or the piano or the organ player or whoever, they need to hear a little bit more of an individual person or an individual instrument, something that is leading, and they're just following along. It can be really helpful for that. So each one is controlled individually right here. Now, a simple note with the stage monitors, those big ones down front, they're controlled by this, but in order to actually get sound out, you can't just, if they just want to have it up on the stage, it's not going to happen. Nothing will come out. You have to have this up as well, whatever channel it's in. So if Mike Baker's using the yellow microphone and he's got he needs to hear himself, you're going to have to mess with that. You got to mess with both of them. You can't just have one or the other. Obviously, if he's singing, he's going to need to come out through the mains. But just be careful of that and the volume control with that. Those speakers will make the room shake. As we experienced several times with CDs and accompaniments, they'll make people want it to be turned down. We get a lot of requests to turn it up because people can't hear. They want us to turn it down. So be very careful when using these, because they'll knock your socks off. I imagine that they could work the earwax out of your ear. So remember, this third yellow one, this yellow one here, we work in conjunction with the individual channels down here. So just be aware of that. And that's the case for all the way across, all the way over to here. All right, now with each one of these, there's also a main control. So it works like the main sliders, except it's a knob, it's not a slider. And they go kitty corner. So this one controls, this is the master for this row, this is the master for this row, and this is the master for this row. Honestly, they're right about where you want them. If you go any more on the subwoofer, it's going to start shaking the room. You get some really bad reverberation, and it makes people unhappy. The same with this. You really you want to try and control it with these. So that one basically remains unchanged. They put out plenty of bass. I can guarantee you that we may need to adjust that individually on the amp on the speakers. With another note, with the piano and the organ, you've got your individual channel control, and then you've got your main. There's another, I'm going to call it a main, and it sits right over here, and it's right here, this little knob. You want to leave it about right there. Those speakers are some pretty good speakers, but I've heard somebody say that they heard some crackling coming out of them. They're brand new. They're less than 5 months old. They're good speakers. Let's make sure that we keep them good speakers for a while. So let's not send them too much power directly through the amp. Let's just increase the signal through the individual channel and through the main here, we can turn it up a little bit. Let's not mess with this guy right here. All right, so those are auxiliaries. Then you've obviously got your individual gains, your microphone sensitivity for each channel. Occasionally you have to mess with those. Most of the time, probably 98% of the time, you don't have to mess with them. They're set where they need to be, specifically for these first few channels. You really don't have to mess with them. Some of the other channels you'll have to mess with. The choir mics you'll have to mess with sometimes if we're doing some choir stuff. The piano you might have to mess with depending on where that microphone is positioned. And each of the other individual channels, the lefts and the rights, you may need to adjust accordingly. Always, if you know you're going to be doing that stuff, try and get here early. Down here, so each one of those has its own function, obviously each for its own channel. It's pretty self-explanatory. The more you turn it clockwise, the more sensitive the microphone is going to be, or the more sensitive the signals are going to be. It's when you get a lot more of ringings and stuff like that. I'm sure we've all experienced that. It's always very annoying when it happens. If we get some loud ringing, it may behoove us just to turn the sensitivity down a little bit and to just turn the volume up just a smidge to compensate for it. That microphone sensitivity can be something that can really, once again, take some wax out of your ears. Now, if you noticed, we've got 4 knobs right here. These 4 knobs act as built-in compressors. A built-in compressor limits how loud somebody will get. So you've got your individual control, so we're going to say we're on the green microphone. You've got your individual control down here, but they keep getting loud on some of these notes. They get really loud. It's really an ear-piercing type thing, but everything else is set where you need it to be. You turn this knob. They're not like the greatest compressors in the world. They're just a standard built-in thing that it'll get the job done. It's not the best though. The more you turn this clockwise, the sooner it will cut out how loud they will get. And what that does is it makes it so when you hear them really get those high notes or whatever it is they got going on, when they really get loud, it cuts it out so you don't hear it so much through the speakers. You hear more of their natural voice because it won't send that, it will cut the signal to the speakers. That's really the only way I can explain it. I have the green and the red set up through this for that reason, because those are used a lot for singing and different things like that. Some people, they get really loud and they can overpower other people on some parts. So it's good to, instead of just constantly, oh, where do I put this? He's quiet here, but then he gets really loud. It's really easy to just come up here and say, right about there. Yeah, that sounds good. It's much easier to do that, so that's why that is hooked into that. Again, right now that's only working with the red and the green because the other 2 channels are open. We can move that around if we need to. That is all I'm going to tell you right now on this video for the soundboard. I'll talk about the rest of it in another video. We'll talk about microphones, a couple of the microphone systems, audio music through the DVD player, discs, and the other stuff that we have back here related to the soundboard. See you later.